And we're back. Wow. Okay, 2 days in a row for videos. Awesome. So I'm gonna try to keep this up and put out a little video every day. This is gonna be another basic one, and I will have more complex ones coming later. So today we're just looking at. I just want to show you a little trick for like the simplest way to make a square or a rectangle. I'm always looking to try to simplify things. In this case, we're just trying to reduce the number of components that we're using and reduce the amount of calculation that needs to take place. So just as a reference, how we would build a rectangle in Rhino is usually we're using point to point. So we're starting this point and then we're going to make another point to finish that off. So it's either a rectangle point to point or it's a square, and we can hold shift and make our square that way. And the other probably the second most common way to do it is to use center. And same deal, we can hit shift if we want to. Now, obviously, there are other ways to do it. I just think those are probably the two most common ways. So as a comparison, in Grasshopper, we can build a rectangle a similar way. I guess I should say the other way that we would do it in Rhino, which I do quite often, is we can use a relative point. So if it's 100 millimeter square, then we can put in our relative dimensions up here in the command line and build a square that way or a rectangle that way. So let's just look at how we would do any of those options in Grasshopper. So if you are going point to point, you can use rectangle 2 point, which would require base plane and 2 points. But if you have a square or rectangle with a dimension, the simplest way to do that would be if we're starting from a point and then we have a dimension, we would use our XY origin, and we'd place that point wherever we want it. And this would probably be coming out of a script. And then that defines the first point, the corner of the rectangle in this first case. And then what we can do is we can just plug in a number slider into the X and Y to make a square. And I don't think it always worked like this. I think before you had to put in a domain, or else it wouldn't work. And we're going to use a domain in 1 second, but this works now. And so we can do our square this way. So a point and a dimension, really simple. And if it's a rectangle, a point and 2 dimensions, your X and Y, and the sliders rename themselves accordingly. But if let's say we want to make a square from center, like we would in Rhino, like this. Well, let's use a domain to do this. So we can build a domain, construct domain, and then let's make a square first. So let's just delete that. Plug the slider into both the start and the finish of the domain. Plug that domain into the X and the Y of the rectangle. Doesn't work yet. Hold on. Let's add an expression, okay? X divided by 2. And the expression for the end of the domain is, let's make this negative X. The start of the domain is negative X divided by 2. And the end of the domain is positive X divided by 2. Okay. Now I'm gonna probably be making a video, a longer form video on domains, and that might be out by the time you're watching this. Maybe not. It'll probably be out a couple of days or weeks after I post this video. But basically, in this domain, the negative X divided by 2 expression is taking this number. Let's make it 60. And if we're starting at this reference point, negative negative x, x is 60. So 60 divided by 2 is 30. So our value is negative 30. So we're basically going from negative 30 to positive 30. Okay, so the total is 60, right? So that gives us an overall dimension of 60. Does that make sense? So that would be the simplest way to make a square from center point, probably for most circumstances, and I'll bring up another one in a second. But and if we wanted to make a rectangle, it's very simple. We would just duplicate these components and plug that into there. And now we have, now the dimensions are following the x and the y. So this is usually probably going to be the most simple way to make a rectangle. And we're just using the expressions to minimize the number of components that are on the canvas, keep it clean. The other way that you may want to build your rectangle or your square, this would only work for a square, depending on the circumstance, is you might want to use a polygon. But a polygon, the dimensions work a little bit differently than the rectangle component. So, and I'll show you that in a second. So a rectangle, this is the rectangle built from the center point, has a dimension of 60. And if you wanted to do this, you would do it this way. But the polygon might come in handy for a different case. So let's use the same origin. And we're going to plug in a radius. And at first, this may not be intuitive. I didn't really get it at first. But the radius is basically going from center to the points. And so we're not really dimensioning it the same way that we were dimensioning this rectangle. I'll show you what it looks like if we plug a circle into here with the same parameters. See how so the polygon, the points reach the outside of the circle. So that's what the radius of the polygon means. And it doesn't matter how many points you plug into it. Okay. So this is a square. So we'll just plug in four sides. And but we can't use the same dimension. If we use the same dimension as our other rectangle, it's not going to work because our square is a lot bigger and it's rotated. So we if we wanted to achieve the same result, we wouldn't really do this, but if we wanted to achieve the same result, we could rotate it. I'm just looking at other options. I like to explore whether other options are, if there's other options that make this simpler. And maybe this works if your square is defined by the diagonal dimension. This might be a simpler way to make your square. But in this case, if you wanted to duplicate this, you'd actually have to do some trigonometry. Where is that trigonometry? It's in here. We can do some right trigonometry. You can use the other components if you want. Oh, I didn't put in degrees. Okay. Yeah, okay, so just remember, if you're using degrees, to hit the degrees sign when it comes to rotation or trigonometry functions. I usually use degrees, and it's always off by default. So just remember to hit that. So anyways, as you can see this, so we're able to duplicate what we did here with this other component. As you can see, it's not efficient. It's not an efficient thing to do, but we're just looking at other alternatives. It's good to compare. Maybe part of this can be used. Or maybe part of this is better in a certain context, depending on what data you're starting with. So anyways, those are some of the tricks that I wanted to just bring up. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know if you're gonna use them. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.